You know what? You vote, you're heard. He votes. We all vote together, and then.
Okay, let's start.
Okay, so what's
Yeah,
it's now 10. It's not working.
it's 10:25. 10:25. We can go as long as you want.
So,
We can go as long as you want.
I mean, what's the plan?
The plan was
Normally
is 45 minutes.
So it's 10. Normally it's what?
10:15 to 11.
10:15 to 11. And it's not 10:45. So if the people.
10:25.
What time is it now?
10:25.
Okay, so if I would end at 11, it would be 35 minutes.
Right.
Tell me how long to go.
Let's go to 11:15.
11:15.
Yes.
Oh, wow, calories.
Sure, you need nice to see you. What do you mean calories? You need strength to learn Torah.
You need lots of strength. Jimmy knows that. You need strength to learn Torah, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so start now.
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay, gentlemen. So we're in the week before Pesach. It's a Sunday morning, and Thursday night is B'dikas Chometz. So I was asked to speak about two subjects today, and I'll only be able to cover very globally these two issues, but the first one I'll speak about is about things that are made before Pesach, and whether you have to worry about them. To what extent does it help cooking something for Pesach? Why people do that? Why people are boiling the sugar? Is there a reason for it? And do you have to do it if you? Where does that come from? And what is the practical application of that whole idea? And the second thing to explain in general, Mechiras Chometz, selling Chometz, what it's all about. And there are some variations on the theme because of this year when Erev Pesach falls on Shabbos. Okay, so let's first speak about the first subject. Is put it to you this way. Let's say that we know that Chometz on Pesach, there's no nullification, there's no bittul. So if you have some non-kosher food, falls into some kosher food. So the general rule is that if you have 60 times more, that it's nullified, the bittul b'shishim. You cannot do this on purpose. But if it happened by accident and it fell in some milk into a big pot of meat or some non-kosher food into a kosher pot, so we can't do it on purpose. But if it happens, so if you have 60 times more of the permitted substance, so then we say the b'diavad after the fact, it's not a problem. On Pesach, there are certain things that there's no bittul whatsoever. One of them is Chometz on Pesach. So if you have a tiny drop of vodka, falls into an industrial tank of kosher Pesach soup the size of this room. Okay, the law is that the entire soup is prohibited. The Rabbi says that the liquid can be split up into infinite number of mashahus. So there's no, since you have an isha mashahu, if it's prohibited even in the slightest amount, So that any drop you're going to take of the kosher Pesach soup is going to have a little bit of chametz in it. And since it's prohibited with mashroom, there's no bittul on it. So that is in the middle of Pesach. Okay, what about before Pesach? So that's the question is, do we have a concept of chayzer v'nir? So chayzer v'nir, normally we're learning a day at this time, so we're learning the different chayzer v'nir, and that's really the foundation to understand how that works and to what extent is this idea followed. So I'll give you the simple case. Simple case is you have, let's say you have a pot of chicken soup or cholent, whatever it is, 60 ounces of kosher meat. Okay. Falls in 1 ounce of milk. What's the law? You're allowed to eat it? Yes. Now, what happens if it falls in that? So now how much kosher do you have? You started with 60 in meat, now you have 1 in milk. How much kosher do you have? 61 kosher. Now, let's say it falls in the 2nd ounce of milk. So we don't say, well, now it's even better because we have 61 ounces of fleshik. So now we have 1 ounce fell into 61 ounces of fleshik. So now it's also about the bashishim. You can keep on doing that, and now you have 62 ounces of kosher, and you have another, and you're going to end up with 1,000 zaysim, 1,000 ounces of milk and 60 ounces of meat, and you're going to pull fleshik. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? We know it's ridiculous. So the reason it's ridiculous halachically is we say chayzer v'nir. After that 2nd ounce fell in, the 1st ounce that we say became nullified, it wakes up. So it wasn't like it doesn't exist anymore. It still exists, but it's not having any impact on the fleshik because it's nullified in both positions. Okay, but you get a second one, it's chayzer v'nir, it wakes up. Let's say it's the same taste, so you don't taste it. So we have a whole different discussion of poskim. In general, this concept of chayzer v'nir, there are some cases it doesn't apply, but in general it does apply. Now, when it comes to Chometz and Pesach, so that's the question. Let's say you're making your Pesach soup, and you have some Pesach chicken soup, and a drop of vodka falls in. And it's before Pesach. The law is before Pesach, it's bottle b'shishim. On Pesach, it's a mashahu. The question is, does it wake up or not? Do we say chayzer v'nir by a isra mashahu on Pesach? I wish I could give you a fast, simple answer, but I can't. Okay, it's not so complicated. It's not so difficult. I'll just give you one general answer to that question and then apply it. And there's a lot of details to it, and in many cases, I'll tell everything on different opinions. But I'll give you the general guidelines. Where? What?
How would a place of year even work?
The question is that now there's a little bit of chametz there, right?
Well, you say it once Pesach starts,
does that wake up and become now also b'mashru? It was bottle b'shishim before Pesach, but is it chayzer v'nir on Pesach? So that's the question. Okay. The general answer to that question, like the answer to most halacha questions, is it depends. Okay, is it something which is a solid, or is it something which is a liquid? If it's lach b'lach, okay, which means the thing totally dissolved, so then the halacha is it's not chayz v'nir. It's bottled before Pesach, and it's bottled before. There are opinions that say differently. The Rambam holds it's chayz v'nir. Okay, there's even an opinion. Al Rebbe brings this, and Al Rebbe even brings an opinion that says even if it fell in and you took it out, and the thing is not even there anymore, just the taste is there, even that's chayz v'nir also b'mashru. Al Rebbe says the halacha is not like that. The halacha is that if it's lach b'lach, it was a liquid, it got mixed up, it's not chayzer v'nir. And you want to be strict, like one of those other two opinions, you can be strict yourself, but you're not allowed to tell other people, you're not allowed to rule like that. You can't paskin like that, because that's not the halacha. In other words, Al Rebbe said there's room for such a chumrah if you want, but it's not the halacha. If it's lach b'lach, it does not wake up. So therefore, it's bottled b'shishim before Pesach, and then it does not wake up. It's not chayz v'nir on Pesach, even though Chometz and Pesach is mashahu, and there is a mashahu Pesach Chometz in there, but it already became nullified before Pesach. Clear? However, if it's yavish, if it's something that's still around and it didn't dissolve, then it's chayz v'niyah. Even if it was bottled beforehand, then it does wake up and it's isra mashal. Okay, that is the general rule, and we have all sorts of ramifications of that. What's exactly called yavish b'yavish? What's lach b'lach? What exactly is the explanation? If you have powders, so the typical example is when you have flour and you have paste stick of flour and it got mixed up with some chometz stick of flour. Do you call that lach b'lach or yavish b'yavish? Lach b'lach doesn't mean it's wet. Flour is dry, but it's in powder form, so everything gets mixed up. Do you measure it by weight? Do you measure it by volume? You know, gasoline, you buy it by the volume. You buy it by the liter, by the gallon. You don't buy it by weight. Okay, potatoes, you don't buy by volume, you buy by weight. There's a lot of air in between. When it comes to powders, they even out just like water. So you can get powders mixed up, but they don't get mixed up automatically like liquids do. Anyway, so there's a machlekes, what do you do with powders? And it has some bearing on the common, I'll give you the most common question where this becomes relevant, and I'll tell you what the answer to the question is. Let me just give that one illustration. Hold on to your question if you don't mind, then I'll come to questions in a second. People, there's a thing about let me just first give one word of introduction. A lot of times people have questions about different hidurim. On Pesach, should I do this? And should I do that? These are questions that are like basically impossible to answer, because how far you take a hiddur, there are hidurim that have halachic basis, there are hidurim that don't have halachic basis. So if somebody would decide they want to be machman lach balach, that is chayz v'niyah. Okay, so they want to be machman like the Rambam. The halacha is not like that, but you have a right. The Rambam says that's the halacha, the Pichodesh says it's even the Kant, and you want to be machman like that. Fine, you're allowed to do that. But there's things the person decides, I don't know, I'm not going to eat potatoes on Pesach. Is that a hiddur? I don't have any basis for that. So like a person says, well, if I cook the potatoes before Pesach, then can I eat them? I said, you can cook on Pesach too. I mean, I don't know how to answer such a question. So I'm taking a ridiculous example because nobody is going to give up. Although I heard once somebody said that we're lucky they didn't have potatoes in the days that are Rishonim, because when they asked kidneys, they would have asked potatoes for sure. You know, people are making 7-layer cakes. You know, who knows what they're making out of the potato starch. Talk about people getting mixed up, but then they would have asked potatoes. We mamish have nothing to eat. Anyway, so I'll take a case which is not so ridiculous. So people ask, if I'm cooking food before Pesach, and there are people that they want to cook all their food before Pesach, because they want things. If the chas v'shalom, there's no Chometz, says bottle b'shish. Do you have to do that? No. Is there a mile in doing that? Maybe. I don't. You know. I'll explain. There are people that want to boil their sugar on Pesach. They say, if I'm cooking before Pesach, do I have to boil my sugar first? So I don't really know how to answer that question, because you don't have to boil your sugar at all. Okay, the sugar is not a problem. So is there an Indian of boiling the sugar? So let me explain.
What's the Indian?
Huh?
You couldn't have said that in Buffalo to my parents 40 years ago.
No, because I didn't finish yet. I didn't finish. There is a reason for doing it. Okay, and depending on what your reason for doing it is, I know people are doing it because they saw their mother do it, or their grandmother, or somebody else do it. That's why they're doing it. But there's halachic reasons for doing it. So I'm going to explain to you what you could gain halachically from doing this. Okay? Let's say there would be some chometz that fell into the shul. Okay. So what happens when you boil it? So if it dissolves, then you helped because it's bottle b'shishim and it's not chayz v'niyah. Okay. By the way, the people who boil the sugar, some people just boil the sugar and then use liquid sugar. Other people boil the sugar and then what do? They strain it. Why are they straining it? Let's say there's a piece of chometz that didn't dissolve. So then you're boiling the sugar. Did it do any good?
Yes.
The boiling the sugar, if you didn't strain it, okay, so you helped for any chametz that might have been there that dissolved, because then it's lach balach, and it's bottle b'shishim, and it's not chayz v'niyah. It doesn't wake up when Pesach comes. But if there's a piece that didn't dissolve, so then it's bottle b'shishim before Pesach, but it's chayz v'niyah when it comes Pesach. So then you strained it. Now, halachically speaking, not that you have to boil it, and not that you have to strain it. So if somebody comes along and says, if I'm baking something with sugar, with potato starch before Pesach, do I have to boil the sugar first? So I don't really know how to answer that question. I said, you don't have to boil the sugar anyway. Now, is there a difference between boiling the sugar and not boiling the sugar? So if you don't strain it, no, there's no difference because it's all going to become lach balach. When you're going to cook the sugar, it's going to liquefy. Okay, but if you strain it before, so then if you don't do that beforehand, then it's too late. It's going to be in your cake, and if it's solid, it's going to be chayzer v'nir. Okay, so is there some reason to do it? So it's a very difficult question to answer because it really depends. But is there a difference between boiling it or not? So I'm not saying you have to worry that there's any chometz in the sugar. But if a person is doing it, and that's the reason to do it, and you're straining it, so if you're doing it before Pesach, so you're taking care of part of the problem of the chayzer v'nir. This is a problem that doesn't, in Mechiras, it's not halachically a problem. We don't have to worry there's any chometz in the sugar. Okay, there's a famous story of one of the Rabbi that he went to. Somebody had a sugar factory. He says, "I guarantee you, there's no chometz in this sugar." And he went and he cracked it. He found a piece of wheat inside. So mamish, this is a nest. Such things happen. I don't know how's a piece of wheat going to get into a sugar factory. That I don't know. Although I will mention, past years I decided I'm not going to speak about it because to just make people nervous for no reason. People are nervous enough already, but a few people asked me about it already, so I guess it's out there already, and OU has been writing about it for a while. There is, by the way, a possibility that there's chometz in the sugar, just by the way. Only today, because there's an enzyme that's sometimes used when they need it back in the place where they're crushing the cane that be kidneys and it might be chometz, but they don't always use it, and it's bottled a million times over, and it dissolves. So halachically speaking, it's not a problem. But the OU decided a couple of years ago they're only putting an OUP, kosher Pesach, on sugar that does not use this enzyme. So all the other ones that say you can use it for Pesach, and they use it in all the OU kosher Pesach products, but the sugar itself, they're only going to put an OUP when they've guaranteed that there's no enzyme going in. And there's only one brand that's like that. So, good luck. If it was something that you could buy in the store, then I would talk to you just to make people stop nervous. If you had that choice of buying that would be much more hidden than sugar. I'd rather have that not boiled than this one boiled and strained. Understand? But it's bottled a million times over, and they don't always use it. And there's one company makes a special run, and they have it all written up on the OU website if you're really curious. I'm not going to go into it. But today, food manufacturing is very, very, very complicated. So, everybody peels their potatoes, okay? Do you have to peel your potatoes? How are you going to get chometz on a potato peel? I have no idea. I really don't. But the minute you start to peel potatoes, continue to peel your potatoes. But halachically speaking, that's why it's hard. So when you're talking about these siturim and cooking before Pesach, what you gain and what you lose, very, very hard to quantify.
But it's exposed. The peels are probably the part of the peels is that it's exposed in the store. Huh?
Okay. Exposed to the store, and then what?
It's a chometz.
What do you mean chometz?
Whatever hands.
It's cold. It's called a cookie.
So what? But I'm
Wash
saying.
it, and it's off.
Okay.
Okay, I agree. I also peel my potatoes.
No, I'm saying
we peel
I would
potatoes.
say-
I'm saying halachically.
Okay,
You want to talk about halachically speaking? The Eibishter gave us a lot of room, but when it comes to mashahu chometz, so we go very, very extreme. So if somebody would tell me, I'd rather. Do I need to peel my potatoes before Pesach? I don't know how to answer that. If I'm cooking before Pesach, do I need to peel the potatoes? I said, you don't need to peel the potatoes on Pesach either.
Right.
How do I answer that?
Some people thought they cook before Pesach and without peeling their.
That's what I'm saying. So if you cook before Pesach and you're relying on that, that's the second most frequently asked question. The first one is about the sugar, and the second one is about the peeling. Do I need to peel things? I want to make something with tomatoes. It's not easy to peel tomatoes. And it happens to be the tomatoes, back in the days of Bar Levi, all of a shalom. This is like 2 generations of Levi's already. He found over there, oils that were not kosher. that were used on the surface. So he said back then you had to wash tomatoes with soap. There are people today who say also there's stuff that they're coating the tomatoes with. What is the worst of it? People are not making oil out of chametz. It could be kidneys, but kidneys batal bereif. That's I'm not halachically not a concern. Probably shouldn't have mentioned it.
I'm done, Tilly. We're done.
That's really what the question was.
Yeah, okay. Listen, I would be. I'm more worried about the tomatoes than the other potatoes or the sugar.
So one quick question: the chumrah of Chabad, of Rabbeim or Chabad of sugar, that was a chumrah mitzvah processed or
What? Why they didn't eat sugar?
Yeah.
I have no idea. What the Rabbeim and why I don't know. I don't know. But they weren't using this enzyme in the days of the Rabbeim. This enzyme is used when the composition of cellulose in the cane is too high and it ends up gumming up the pipes when you crush it. So then they put the enzyme which liquefies it and turns it into sugar. So the people are screaming, Davar HaMaimed. Davar HaMaimed lebotl.
Right.
Yeah, it's going to change it.
It is a Davar HaMaimed, but it's a Davar HaMaimed on this much sugar. It's not the Davar HaMaimed on the whole sugar. It's Davar HaMaimed on something. Yeah, okay, good. So you're going to say that pound of sugar or whatever it is that it liquefied, 10 pounds, whatever it is, it was Maimed at 10, but that 10 is bottled in the whole factory. So there's no shiur whatsoever. There's no shiur whatsoever. Is maybe. Anyway, so it's not a halachic. These things are not halachic problems, and it's more, I think, in terms of personality refinement to go and be mahader for Pesach, and you're doing something to avoid the Vedas the whole year, mashu chometz, this and that. Because it's going to cause people to start screaming at each other and freaking out because of the difficulty of doing this. I think you probably lose the. That's as hard as I say that. Okay, question.
Based on what you're saying, buying cigarettes before Yom Tov does nothing because it's Yom Shabbos, right? I know a lot of people buy their cigarettes before Yom Tov, so then Chometz is buffer. But based on what you're saying, it doesn't do anything, right?
I think the Rosh doesn't smoke on Pesach.
My father is smoking.
The Rosh doesn't smoke on Pesach.
Yeah.
I know. It's not enough.
Zin. That's it.
For sure, Chometz.
There's a Magen Avraham. This is like a totally different subject, just by the way. But he talks about tobacco on Pesach. They used to sprinkle alcohol on the tobacco, and therefore the Magen Avraham says you should sell it. You should sell it with the chametz. Everybody asks the question that chametz was nifsal mechiras kelev if before Pesach a dog wouldn't eat this chametz anymore, so then you don't have to sell it. You're not allowed to eat it because of achshaveh, but you're allowed to have hana from it. Well, that's the whole shaila. We're not doing a shiur on medications and over-the-counter and deodorants and all of these different products. That's another shiur. Okay, that's really, this question is more that, because this alcohol is not edible anymore. It got absorbed in the tobacco. Well, like how does this, dogs don't eat tobacco. People don't eat tobacco either. They can maybe chew it, but they're not. Is that called achila? So all the mafarshim struggle with this. Alter Rebbe quotes a Shulchan Aruch about this chumrah. So what is the status of whatever chametz might be there? The chametz was lach. So lach b'yavish is another headache. Okay, and there's a few places the Alter Rebbe speaks about Shulchan Aruch. And he has a tshuva on it also about this, but it's beyond the scope of our discussion right now. So what it helps, what it doesn't help, but you need to worry about it halachically. Again, I don't think it's a problem, but is there a makom l'chumra? I'm sure you could find dayas that would say it's problematic. Okay, so that was really what the subject Chayz Manir. On to the next subject. Okay, Mechiras Chometz. They need really a longer time for it. Huh? The conclusion is that however whatever hither you are doing by cooking it beforehand, if you want to have that complete hiddur, then yes, you have to boil and strain the sugar. But I'm not going to say that you need to do that, because for Pesach also you don't need to do it. But it's not the same. It's not the same. Okay, you take care of half of the potential problem, but not the whole potential problem. But on the other hand, like half of 0 is 0. So luckily is you don't have to do it. But that's especially this year. That Pesach falls on a Shabbos. There are a lot of things you do. People shouldn't get mixed up from one year to the other. Say, well, this time we did it like this. This time we did it like that. Okay. Mechiras Chometz. So I was trying to find a good mashal to explain how we do Mechiras Chometz today and how it has it evolved. We have from the Tosefta. We have a story from the days of Rabbi Akiva of people selling Chometz. It's not a new thing. But the way we do it is a completely new thing. The Alter Rebbe writes, Chadoshim Mikorav Boy. People just started doing this. They say Alter Rebbe. Chadoshim Mikorav Boy. Who are the Chadoshim he's talking about? He's talking about not just like some people off the street. He's talking about the Pri Megadim, the native Yehuda. And it was a new thing in the days of the Alter Rebbe. The days of the Yehuda, the Pri Megadim, all living around the same time. But it's a Tosefta. It's going back a couple thousand years. So I'll explain it to you like this. I have here a pen. Metal. They're selling karka, immovables, houses, land, and then there's movable objects. Now, if I'm going to sell you this pen for $1, so what two things are going to happen? Number one, you're going to give me $1. Number two is what? I'm going to give you the pen. Okay, then it becomes yours. Okay, you have to make hagbah, meshicha, it's metaltal, and we have all the different kinyanim about at what point exactly does it come into your possession, what's the X, what's the rabban. But that's what you normally do when you sell something. Let's say you give a matana, you give somebody a gift. What do you do when you give somebody a gift? I say, I'm giving you this pen. What happens? Huh? I got to give you the pen. If I leave it in my pocket and I say, I'm giving you my pen, what does that mean exactly? Like I'm holding on to the pen. What kind of gift is that? So when you're selling things, and that's what happened in the Tosefta. Okay, they were stuck on a boat, and it was only because it was a Shas Adchak. They were on a boat, and it was before Pesach, and that's all they had to eat. Okay, so if they threw this overboard and got the beer chametz on it, then after Pesach they would starve. Therefore, they had nothing to eat. So therefore, they went a matana to the non-Jews on the boat, a mechira, they sold to the non-Jews on the boat. But they took all the chametz and they gave it to them. And they gave them some money, or they gave them a matana gemura, whatever the case. It's physically. So out of these, so the two basic elements of a sale, are clear what they are. Now it's obvious we don't have either of those. Okay, but we're going to walk it through. There are some other things that are taken for granted. If I say I'm going to sell you what's in this pocket for $1, is that okay? Give me $1, then it's yours. Is that a key? No. You don't know what it is. Okay. If I have a box, I'm selling you what's in this box for $100. Is that a valid kinyan? We said it's an asmachta. It's like buying a lottery ticket. Is that a valid transaction? Not a valid transaction. So it's a big problem, such a thing. You have to know what you're buying. And also you have to know in general, if I have something and I tell you it's a diamond and it's a fake diamond, so it's also a problem. You have to know the nature of what it is that you're buying. Over here, what exactly is happening? You're signing a shtar, all the chametz in my business. You own, Dunkin' Donuts or something. Jewish owner Dunkin' Donuts. I'm selling them all Dunkin' Donuts. Yeah. What's there? What kind of chametz? How much? It's all sitting over there in the same place. Oh, say a regular Jew in your house. You have some pasta sitting over there. So I'm selling all the pasta at 62 Westbury. All the chametz, 62 Westbury, I'm selling to you. Okay? Where's the chametz? Sitting, same place it was before Pesach, and the same place it's going to be after Pesach. what's the money? So what you do when you sign the shtar, and by the way, I'll stay afterwards. Anybody wants to arrange this on chametz. But you sign a harshah, which means you're making the Rav a shliach to sell your chametz. Okay? The reason you do this, so the people ask all the time, why can't I just sell my chametz? Because if you're going to sell your chametz, and you're going to take all your chametz out of your house, and you're going to give it to the guy, and he's going to give you money, then there's no problem with you selling your chametz by yourself. But people don't do that. Nobody's about to do that. Okay? It used to be people had, even practically speaking, you couldn't hold on to that much chametz. You could store away wheat, but the wheat also was usually not chametz unless it got wet. The wheat was kosher Pesach. Stam flour in the marketplace was kosher Pesach. It wasn't shmura, but you'd be allowed to eat at Pesach. They wouldn't normally wash the grain. If it's barley, it's one thing, but it's wheat, they wouldn't normally wash it. People didn't have chametz. And they didn't have stored, there's no fridge, no freezer. So to keep things around for long, no preservatives, packaging, people couldn't even hold on to chametz. They didn't even have that much. Now, if you owned, and this when the Yidden were in the business and they started running bars and they had a lot of beer and other spirits that they would sell. So then they ended up being a bigger problem. You had larger amounts. So they had to find some sort of solution. But up until the days of the Alter Rebbe, people were not selling chametz like this. Any sales of chametz were done on a very, very small scale. And if a person wanted to do that, they have no chametz in themselves. They just have one box of pretzels, okay? And they don't want to throw it in the garbage. They want to hold on to it. So they go to the next door neighbor. Excuse me, Mr. Oral, here's a box of pretzels. I'll sell it to you for 50 cents. He gives you 50 cents. Or I'll give it to you as a matana. If it's a matana, he knows, wink, wink, I'll give it to you back afterwards. As long as it's a matana gemura and he's allowed legally to keep it, it's not yours. End of story. He gives you 25 cents for the box. That's the end of story. You can do it by yourself. If you're taking it all, that's a sale.
So Yiddish businesses didn't do anything.
Huh?
Yiddish businesses in those days didn't do anything.
So they did not have large amounts of chametz that they had to get rid of until the days of the Alter Rebbe, the days of Yehuda. So all of these kretschmas evidently only became a problem then. Then when the Yidden, even when the Yidden had these kretschmas, where they would sell beer and all of these other things, the owner they were renting the right to run the business, but it wasn't theirs. The government owned it. It's like Canada, where the government owns everything, and you get the right to. The farmers here, they don't own the milk. The government owns the milk here. The farmer owns the cow, but he doesn't own the milk. The owner of the milk is the government. Is the provincial government, not the government of Canada. It's the government of Quebec or Ontario or whatever it is. That's why this whole, people have a little different take on the tariff situation because I see it from the other side. But anyway, we're not talking about that. Bring an elephant into the room. But the owner of the chametz was the guy. You don't have to sell it to him. He owned it anyway. He's just paying the Yid to run the business. Okay, so that was, but then it came that the Yidden were owning it. So that's what started happening. So now you end up and you have 100,000 rubles worth of chametz. So what are you going to do? So even if you're going to move out, you're going to give the keys to the premises to the guy, and you give him the whole thing over there. But where's the money? So they would make a down payment. So let's say I'm selling this to spend to you for $1. And you say, I don't have $1 on me. I only have a dime. So this is a down payment. And I owe you 90 cents. Okay, is that a kinyan? Al pi halacha, that's a kinyan. If I give this to you and I tell you the price, okay, and you make a down payment, so that's a kinyan. What's with the 90 cents? That's a financial obligation and nothing to do with the pen. The pen is your pen. You don't pay me the 90 cents, I'll bring you to Bezdin for 90 cents. Okay, whatever the case is. It doesn't matter if it's 90 cents or it's $90 million. Whatever it is, you can give a down payment, and that is under normal circumstances when we know what you're buying and it's changing hands, okay, and it's between two Jews and another couple of conditions, there's no problem making a down payment, okay? But the way the chametz was being sold and the way the Pri Megadim said to do it and the way the Neder Yehuda said to do it, okay, they didn't see the shiur mekubetzes. There's a shiur mekubetzes who's a rishon, who wasn't printed, and he was just recently printed. And the Alter Rebbe got a hold of it. And the Alter Rebbe says, according to Shita Mekabetzis, it does not work. It does not work. And you're owning chametz on Pesach. Okay? And that's why he says this whole idea is called Zakaf Alav Milva. Zakaf Alav Milva means that you take the balance and it becomes a financial obligation. So the kinyan, the transfer of ownership happens. You sold it to the guy. Good. He only gives you a down payment. He only gives you a down payment. This is aside from the fact that would be if he knew exactly what he was buying. He knows he's buying. In those days, they knew exactly what they were buying. I'm buying, 1,000 rubles worth of beer. Here's a ruble. Down payment. Now I owe you this many rubles. Okay, that's a financial thing. So the guy owes you money. Okay, so that's what they were relying on. Okay, and Alter Rebbe says you cannot rely on that. According to Yagdil Torah, it's no good. It's no good. This whole key.
Why?
The Alter Rebbe solved two reasons for it. If I have time, I can go into the reasons also. If you want to, you can do Rabbi Belanov. He wrote a whole sefer on this issue. There's a whole discussion about it. Why Zagav Milva does not work for our Mechiras Chometz. But let me just go a little bit further, because in our case, he doesn't know how much he's buying. He doesn't know how much it's worth. He doesn't even know what he's buying. Okay, this whole thing, this whole Mechira, to call it a Mechira, that's when people keep trying to stretch it further, they don't realize that in Halacha, this whole transaction it's a valid transaction, but it's like being held together like with toothpicks and the bubble gum, pays like a bubble gum, but like the whole thing is very, very, to call this a Mechira. That's why many of the poskim say that you're not allowed to sell chametz gomer, because the whole thing is we're only going to allow this whole Mechira because it's only midrabanan, because you did bittul, and midiraisa you will mevatel your chametz, so therefore you don't own it anyway, and you're not able bal your matzah. So you own the whole thing's only midrabanan. And even with that, many of the poskim say that you're not allowed to sell chametz gomer. Yes, there's a chash chametz, so maybe you forgot something, you didn't find it, this and that, so we'll sell it to the guy also. According to and the yesod for this approach also is based that there's this whole idea of making you transgressing by your matzah for owning chametz is also pretty strange, because if you miss the time just being mavatal your chametz and selling your chametz, you're allowed to be mavatal it afterwards? No, why not? It's also b'hano, and therefore what? You don't own it. You can't get any hano from it. You have no ownership. So let me ask you: if you don't own it, why are you over bal your matzah? You're able bal your matzah for what? For owning chametz on Pesach. Yeah. Here we're saying you can't sell it. Why? Because you don't own it. So if I don't own it, how are you making me over? Huh?
Because us and
It's a paradox. Sure, it's a paradox. It's a beferish paradox. It's heads I win, tails you lose. Like, what's going on over here? You're going to tell me I don't own it, so I can't get rid of it. But to give you all Israel that we're going to give you, and we'll give you two of them. We'll give you to you twice. Okay. So the answer is yes. That's exactly what the Torah gives. The example given is a berber shusarabim. Somebody digs a pit in the middle of the public domain. Okay, and somebody's ox falls in, or somebody's car, you break an axle, going into the hole. So who's responsible for it? Just because you dug a pit in the public domain, do you own it? No, it doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the city. Okay, but paying for damages that belongs to you. Doesn't belong to you, but damages you'll get. So it is about your what's it you're gonna get, even though it doesn't belong to you. The Torah makes it as if it belongs to you. So therefore, these poskim say that since it's not a real ownership, it's only because it is Israel, so we only have to take off this Israel. So this Mechira is good enough. However, the Alter Rebbe holds that you need the Mechira midiraisa, and bittul doesn't help. You have to decide what is it you're doing being mevatel and what is it you're selling. And he says, and if you mess up the sale, you're over midiraisa, because it doesn't make sense. You're taking an expensive bottle of mashke, okay? You have an expensive bottle of mashke, and you're putting it in the chametz closet, and you're selling it. And then you say, "Kol chamira v'chamira diga b'reshuse batul ka'afra da'ara." Oh, batul ka'afra da'ara. So I'm going to pour it down the toilet. Don't touch it. What kind of bittul is that? That's no bittul. You're not being mevatel that. You're selling it. Forget it. If you're mevatel, then you can't sell it. That's all that ever said. It's either this or that. So therefore, it's not midirabanan. It's midiraisa according to Alter
It's the same thing with the sale. If the guy comes and wants to spill it out, you also give these.
Yeah, but then he's gonna have to pay
You
afterwards.
have to pay it.
He'll have to pay. That's why the guy doesn't do it. I mean, normally the chash then was when they would spill it down their throat. They would drink up all the profits. The guy's going to provide all the friends and he's going to drink up all the mashta in the whole place. Okay, so that was why Zokavul of the Milva. That's why they had to have some sort of financial security that the guy's going to have a paper that he owes them money. But according to Gedela Rishonim, that nullifies the sale. Okay, so what do? So the Alter Rebbe came along with a solution, which is called the Art of Kabbalah. Okay, the kitzur of the idea of Art of Kabbalah is there's a difference between transactions between the halacha of acquisition of kinyana between a Jew and a non-Jew are different between two Jews. It's much easier to accomplish transfer of ownership between two Jews than it is between a Jew and a non-Jew, because it's big machlekes on what helps and what doesn't help, under what conditions does it help. Everything's but transactions between Jews and non-Jews, kinyan kesef and mashicha and clip and all of these things, big machlekes on what helps and what doesn't help. So what the Alter Rebbe did, he put a Jew in between. Okay, and the Art of Kabbalah is a special type of guarantor for the balance of the loan. So no longer does the balance, let's say there's for argument's sake, $1 million worth of chametz. So the guy that's buying the chametz gives a down payment of, let's say, $25. Okay. So he owes $1 million minus 25. Okay. So that loan would invalidate the sale according to the Rishonim quoted by the Alter Rebbe. So what does he do? He puts a guarantor and says, I will pay you the balance. And he gives him a piece of paper. I will guarantee the balance. And he tells the guy, now you have to pay me, the Art of Kabbalah, the guarantor. You don't have to pay the seller. You have to pay the guarantor. And this guarantor has to be outside of this whole thing. He can't sell his chametz because then he's going to be part of it and the whole thing is going to get messed up. He can't. That's why a lot of times you take a bacher, and a bacher doesn't own any chametz, doesn't need to sell any chametz. They is the Art of Kabbalah. So what happens over here now is that the Jew is secure he's getting his money from the guarantor. Okay, and the only problem is if the guy owes money to the seller. That's the problem.
Is this the way the belt sells it? Or
No. So Labav, all Lubavitch Rabbanim do this. I'll tell you an interesting thing. Once happened to me. I was you have a Purim Rav. I was once a Pesach Rav, Pesach program. So I went to this place. It's in the mountains in New York, and I sold my chametz beforehand. I went over there, and one of there was a nash, and it was a Lubavitcher guy. He says, "I forgot to sell my chametz. What do I do?" I had a Pesach in the morning. Huh?
Before Chabad, I'm assuming.
Yeah, way before. So I said, listen, there's a Rav in the city. You go to him. I didn't bring a shtar with me. I wasn't prepared for this. Rav. So he calls me from the house of this Hungarian Rav, and he says, I asked him. He doesn't sell with the Art of Kabbalah. So there are a lot of in the Chassidic, by the Chassidim, they go according to Alter Rebbe, a lot of them. So you have a lot of the Chassidish Rabbanim that will do Art of Kabbalah. That's what Alter Rebbe wrote. So I said, let me talk to the Rav. So I speak to him. He said, he says, I want to tell you. He says, I know I should be selling the Art of Kabbalah. I saw what Alter Rebbe writes. Yeah? So what he wrote, he says, but I was never taught how to do it, so I'm afraid to do it. And the fact is that the shtar, if you try to do this, that the Alter Rebbe writes, the Alter Rebbe has a text of a document, but you can't use his document. His document you can't use today because we've changed from the days of Alter Rebbe. The way we sell chametz is different. So you have to make changes. He said, I tried to do it. He says, I can't figure it out, and I never had anybody to show me. Will you show me? It'll be a favor to me. You show me how to solve a problem. So I had to write out a star by hand. I went over to his house, and the person had to.
It's a long start.
Yeah, it's a long star. His Amos Shimon used to write out every year a whole star by hand. Write out the whole thing. So whatever. So then you have it, and whatever. But in general, they don't. So, can you pause the recording for a second?
Controversial?
Or just mute or whatever the case is. Yeah. So the question is, what do you do with the bakeries in the city?
The keeping products.
Yeah. Again, they're baking fresh. So the question is the flour. So the flour, I'm not, it's not.
It's not wet. It's tough enough.
Normally they wash the flour. They're washing in between. Whether the way they process it makes it chametz stick or not, it always was assumed that it's for sure chametz. I was told that today that it's not for sure, but I don't really know, and frankly, I don't know how you could know. There's a whole discussion about washing the wheat and bleaching the wheat. It's certainly processed by the time they're getting it. But again, how long they hold it, that will vary from bakery to bakery. But the fresh baked goods, you don't keep that long.
You have frozen.
Frozen, ready to go together.
Again,
Frozen dough.
I'm not going to answer things, but they're sold. And they're, if you're relying on that, they're up for the rest of the kashrus, so you're going to rely on that too. Whatever it is. It's halachically speaking, I'm not answer that, but it's a serious halachic issue. Just mention one. There's so much to say on the subject, and I thought I was going to end up speaking the whole time about Rabbi Shcholios Shabbos, but since it's only 4 minutes left, I'm not going to speak about it. But
Can you speak about the shiur?
one. Okay, I'll give 2 minutes to this subject and 2 minutes to that subject. The 2 minutes for this subject is that the question is it worth selling chametz for people that don't keep Pesach? What are you selling the chametz for? So this, there's a famous answer from the Rabbi that's printed. And I recently was able to track down the entire story written up with all the details. I once heard it from Shmuel Pesach Bogomilsky, who was the one who was behind it. He was a yeshiva bacher, went to America Shlichus, and he was in Barbados, and he was selling the chametz for the people. There was one frum yid on this island, and he said, these people don't even keep Pesach. The whole thing's invalid. And the fact is, the Stei Chametz says that it's mabatel the Mechiras. If somebody breaks into the chametz in the middle of Pesach, it nullifies the whole Mechiras. So he came back he went to a few rabbanim, and he asked them, should he sell the chametz or not? And everybody gave him a different answer. So he took all the answers from all these rabbanim and he sent it into the Rebbe. So the Rebbe wrote a whole answer. It's like in Nigla, the Malei Chedushim, a couple of lines from the Rebbe, like 6 points the Rebbe writes over there. Each line is like it opens up a whole subject. The bottom line is the Rebbe said, yes, you should sell, and you should ask rabbanim whether it's worth doing either of these two changes to the shtar, and if so, whether to write it or not. So anyway, it ended up that the Rebbe wrote a nusach from the first of those two alternatives. But I recently found like the whole story from beginning to end, everybody he asked is like fascinating what ended up happening over there. But L'Payel we sell, and there's a line there in the shtar that says that if somebody goes into the Chometz in the middle of Pesach, okay, that he's doing it not for profit for himself, but he's doing it as a representative of the goy. He's like a shliach of the goy.
You know, restaurants do, they go before the sale.
So wait, one second. So what ends up happening is, let's say you sold $100 worth of chametz, okay? For a yid, and the yid decides whatever he's going to feed. He's not going to eat it himself. Chas v'sholom, he's going to feed some chametz to his dog. So he goes into the chametz like a closet, and he takes $1 worth of chametz out of the 100, and he feeds it to his dog. So what ends up happening is it had nothing to do with the sale, because you put in the shtar that if he takes some of that chametz, he's just doing it as a shliach of the guy. So the guy gave the dog $1 worth of chametz, and now instead of owing $100, he only owes $99, because Bachali doesn't know how much he bought anyway. So if you want to collect the money, the Rav Kalden is the one that's going to collect the money from the guy. He always ends up paying back with the chametz. They never end up buying it, but otherwise everybody come knock on the door. Excuse me, how much spaghetti you have, and start taking inventory. So he's doing it as a shliach, and what you're gaining by this is he's not nullifying the mechir. Okay, that's important addition. Now, as far as our Pesach Cholis B'Shabbos, so I'm 11:15. I'm out of time. So no, it's a very complicated topic. I will give you the kids. Okay, what you can or cannot do will vary according to who you sell your chametz with. Okay, because even among Rabbanei Chabad, you have differences. The conditions, what to do. There is no unanimous opinion. Every alternative comes along with a set of problems. So I can tell you what Rabbi Banon and I sell the chametz together. Okay, so we do the same thing. We do what Rabbi Handel did. Okay, but a lot of people don't do what Rabbi Handel did. Okay, I've mentioned a couple of Rabbanim, they're blown away by it, but it doesn't mean that they're going to change what they do. But let me first explain to you the problems. And since there are people that are in different time zones and they're selling online, they're doing this and that, I'm going to tell you the potential issues and a way that you can avoid according to all opinions. Okay. Issue number one: when is the chametz being sold? Okay. So the chametz every year is sold out of Pesach sometime before Zman HaBiur. So it says in the Vad calendar, for example, so this year, and this is Shabbos mornings out of Pesach, you have to finish eating chametz by 10:12. You have to burn the chametz, I think, 11:33. You get something like that. Yeah. So those are the two zman. So it's usually sold between 10:12 and 11:33. But you don't wait till the last minute to sell it, because if you wait till after 11:33, you can't sell it anymore. Okay. So when is it sold? It's sold sometime in that hour. Okay. This year. Okay, the way Rabbi Handel did it, he sold it the same way he did every year, but on Friday instead of on Shabbos. Which means you have to decide if that's what your rabbi is doing, what it is that's going in the chametz deka closet, and what's going to be a chametz deka closet, that it should be a sale beforehand. And you should be ready for that already there in the morning. So that's question number one. Question number two, after that's done, what's with the rest of Friday? Can you eat chametz? Now you're putting away chametz for the Shabbos meals, because you have to have chametz Friday night and you have to have chametz Shabbos day. Why do you have to have chametz? Because you can't eat matzah, okay, and you have to eat a Shabbos suda. So you could be kiddush makom suda, you could drink 2 cups of wine, but you need a suda Shabbos, you need 2 zaysim of lechem, okay, and you can't eat matzah, so you have to eat chametz. So now, how do you eat those meals? And what's with the leftovers? So the way to eat those meals is that you have to contain the crumbs, so you're going to be able to throw it down the toilet. Okay? You know, in the old days, they had dirt floors over there, so they put the crumbs on the floor, everybody walked on them, and then they weren't edible anymore, and that was the end of it. That was their bittul. Okay, but today we can put it down the toilet. Okay, so that's the way we get rid of the crumbs. Huh?
You eat outside.
Yeah. So that would be an alternative. That's I think.
The birds are going to come and eat it.
If it's chametz you can't rely on the birds. But it's small enough that it's become the drisis reglaim, whatever the case is. If it falls in the dirt, pashas, that's good enough. Now, what's with Friday afternoon? So the practical problem in eating chametz Friday afternoon is how you're going to keep your house basic unless everybody eats outside. Okay. The problem is also, let's talk first about buying. If you buy chametz Friday afternoon, you go to IGA and you buy yourself some chametz over there. That's not including the mechira. Okay, there are rabbanim that make the mechira. They make the transaction earlier, but they say it doesn't take effect until right before Shabbos, which is the opposite of what it normally says in the shtar. So you got to start playing around. The Alter Rebbe says very clearly that it has to say right at that moment that it has to apply. So then you could buy chametz. It's not including the mechira, but you bought it to eat. You just have to eat it down to the end, or give the leftovers to a guy.
What if you eat in the room that you sold to the guy? So all the crumbs are there.
But he made the kinyan already, so you're not adding to the kinyan. There's all sorts of.
You sold to the guy already. You're eating his chametz with the.
Okay, so let me. I was going to get there in a second. So let me just. First, I'm going to do it with holidays because people are selling by all different rabbanim, and then all the rabbanim doing something differently. Okay, so buying the chametz is according to many going to be not a problem, and according to many others, it's going to be a problem. Okay, eating the chametz, everybody has a problem with the leftovers and the crumbs and stuff like that. Is it a problem that you're stealing from the guy because you sold? If you take out the chametz from your chametz closet and eat it, is that being mabatal the mechira? So probably this line that the Rebbe said to add in, you did it for the Frayid, it helps for us in such a thing because you're going to do it. Anyway, what Rabbi Handel would do is that he actually wrote it. We're probably not going to write it for other reasons, but he wrote, I have a copy of it. I knew I had a copy, but I had to dig it up. Tavshin Samach Aleph. I looked at it and I see it's my handwriting because he told me to write it in English for the guy. So he writes that all the chametz is sold, that's the whole shtar. He added a line that the guy is giving as a gift to the Yidden whatever they want to eat on Shabbos. Don't give him a ton. So the kinyan already took place Friday morning. He's giving as a gift. We're going to add that he's giving as a gift whatever people want to eat Friday afternoon. Now, are you allowed to eat b'chal chametz Friday afternoon? It's a machlekas apaskim. What's the minute? So you saw, I don't know if everybody saw the weekly Fabreng, and they give out this English blettel over there. So Rabbi Raskin from Eretz Yisrael, he writes over there, the minig is not to eat chametz Friday afternoon. Only what's put away for the 2 sudas. That's what he writes over there. And he brings a source for it. And the Gabriel, it says like that. And that's what the Chassidus of the Taka don't eat chametz the whole afternoon. I only put aside only what's for Shabbos, not for anything else. But you look in Piskei Teshuvos, he writes over there, there's all the poskim say you're not allowed to, but the minig is to allow it. So what's minig Chabad? There's no minig Chabad. There's no minig Chabad. Is it advisable? I definitely would not advise it, but you have, everybody has their situation, and you have kids that need to eat this and that, but you just have to be very, very careful about the leftover chametz. So that would not be now. Can you put leftover chametz? Let's say people say pita, it makes less crumbs. I don't know whether that's really true or not, but it makes less crumbs than a water challah for sure. But okay, let's say a person bought a package of 6 pitas. Okay, everybody's together, everybody's going to eat a pita, and the kid says, "I don't like pita." And you're left with half a pita. Now what do? Eat your pita! Oh, I'm not eating the pita. You eat the pita. It's 10:11. We got 1 minute to eat this pita. What are we going to do over here? Everybody's panicking. We don't need this. Okay. So this is one of the ways. So according to this addition that Rabbi Handel put in, there's no problem. Put it back in the closet. Right. Because it's sold. He just gave you matana what you're eating, but you're not eating. Even the crumbs you're not owning. Okay? The only potential problem is that the places you sell are supposed to be sealed off. Okay? It's supposed to be sealed with tape. So how do you open it? How do you close it? So the poskim right over says, no problem. Just take the key. Hide the key. Who has a key? People locking away the chametz with a key. There's a shayla. How are you going to go and close it? So the poskim right about this. You go and take up a string and make a bow that you're allowed to make on Shabbos. Okay. whatever. That's really the only issue with this eitzah. But according to other poskim, you're not allowed to do this. I mean, this will work for our star, but others don't do that. Okay, they do not include the chametz which you're eating for Shabbos is not included in the sale. Okay, so you can't add it and just throw it in the chametz stick closet on Shabbos because it was not sold. The fact that you put it in a room that's sold doesn't make it the goys, because the transaction was completed. Even though they all extended to a minute before Shabbos, but there are poskim, but I don't know anybody that does it like that today. But there are poskim that allowed to be chal on Shabbos, the kinyan. Okay, but nobody that I know that I ever heard of doing that today. So if you want to do a holidays, eat yourself the pita. If kid doesn't want to eat the pita. But just an important thing to remember that before the time of Zman Isser Achila, okay, which in the Vad calendar is 10/12.
On Shabbos.
On Shabbos, yeah. Then you have to clean out your mouth. Okay, and there's some people that have like complicated things going on in their mouth, like braces, and like the whole thing is very difficult to get the leftover chametz out. So practical eitzah for that is just take your pita, whatever it is you're eating, and just like dunk it in water. It's not so geschmack, but eating cholent at 10 o'clock in the morning is also not so geschmack. Anyway, eating the whole suda, waking up early.
The regular Shabbos,
Huh?
$5.
Oh, okay. Sorry. You've been hugging. I thought you finished the night before. Anyway, so, yeah. Common question asked is like, if by mistake, it's very funny, people asking, if by mistake I sleep in Shabbos morning, I say, why are you asking now in case you're sleeping in Shabbos? It's like, what kind of mistake is that exactly? Anyway, so, B'diavad, you have till 10:40.
Noon. You just don't eat.
So you have to have.
I'm saying, the Zman recording.
What's the
Okay, all of the Zmanim. You'll see all different sorts of Zmanim. You'll go on Chabad.org and get different Zmanim that it says in the Yeshiva calendar. Okay, but all of these calendars are made at Chabad.org. You know what? I can stay, and people that want to run, people want to sell the chametz. I'll stop the shiur, and I can keep. Fortunately or not fortunately, I can keep talking. You know?